So actually, I am going to begin because I've got the easy part and I've got the fast part, provide the welcome. So first of all, my name's Mary Waldron. I'm the executive director. I'm the proud executive director of Old Colony Planning Council. We are one of 13 regional planning agencies across the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. We have 17 communities in our region, very diverse, right? From a city like the city of Brockton to very small towns like the town of Hanson and others. But I first want to be able to thank, and I usually put this at the end, but I'm starting it off at the beginning, to thank the Old Colony Planning Council staff, in particular, Nick Giaquinto, for reaching out to both Pat and to Juan to do this webinar for specifically our region, but also to the behind the scenes folks, as in Megan and Elise, who are our creative folks behind it and support. So I know someone has their hand up before we go. Susan Globin, you have your hand up. Let me just, I don't know if Susan, anyway, I cannot see someone. I'll let that for Megan to be able to do that. So let me continue on. As I put it in here, we are recording this. And then the deck and the PowerPoint will be shared along with the recording. So we'll say that a couple times, and then we're going to hold off on some questions for after. But I do want to be able to acknowledge a couple of our delegates, Val Massard from the town of Kingston, Allison Shane from the town of Duxbury, and Noreen O'Toole from the town of Whitman. And I think I have all of our delegates. But more importantly, too, I want to be able to acknowledge Al DiGirolamo from Senator Brady's office. Our legislative delegation is a strong delegation. They're constantly getting emails from me, and I just want to say thank you to them, because it is them who are, it is that delegation who support the One Stop and the various programs such as what Juan and Patrick are going to be talking about. So if I know, Susan, you have your hand raised and you are unmuted. Did you want to say something now? I cannot hear you. Susan, I'm going to have you just put it in the chat if you can. Thank you. I'm going to just mute you so we can move on. Without further ado, I want to be able to turn this over to Assistant Secretary Juan Vega. I've had the distinct pleasure of knowing Juan over many years. We won't talk about how many, but he's always responsive, and he is also just someone who's just been very helpful to us as a regional planning agency, and to me personal. So without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Juan. Thank you, Juan.
Great, thank you very much, Mary. Are you all able to hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. So thank you to you, to Nick and the Planning Council for the invitation. We are certainly way in the middle here of the FY26 round of the Community One Stop. This is our 5th year of running this process, and always happy when we get invited to talk to regional groups in particular, as we look to increase the participation of all cities and towns, as well as organizations in this process. So I'll start just with very brief history. For those of you that may not know, the One Stop was launched in January of 2021, and it was designed as a single application portal and collaborative review process designed to streamline the experiences for the applicant and to better coordinate our programs and staff on engagement and grant making.
Juan, if I could, I think your voice is being picked up by Pat's.
Yeah, we're sharing.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
so
All right. Thank
we're
you.
in the same room, so we're trying to share one mic so it doesn't echo.
Okay.
So if it does echo, please let me know.
That works out. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm keeping myself muted. And so it was created as part of the 2019 Economic Development Plan. And at the time, what we were hearing from communities when we were traveling around the different regions was this frustration with people not knowing about and then having difficulty accessing various state funding sources. And so this process reoriented us in the Commonwealth from just being a passive reviewer of your applications to being an active partner in economic development strategy, priorities, and investment. This is essentially the overview, or the highlight of the entire process. We are currently in the guidance phase, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. This is really where the applicants get an opportunity to get guidance, from the programs and from the different, organizations, before they start committing, the project to a full application. We understand that there's a lot of work that goes into these applications, and so we're trying to give you as much advice and ideas and guidance before you start putting pen to paper, as they say. Then the full application, that's actually where you will be committing to the project, and describing the project for which you are seeking funding. This is the only way that you actually ask for the grant, is through the full application. And it's designed really to guide the applicants through this process, through the development continuum, which is what we call or we use that terminology for describing the development life cycle of any project. Once the full applications are submitted and the deadline comes, we then move into the collaborative review phase. This is an important component of this entire process, which really created an opportunity for all the three agencies in this case that are involved in all the programs to work together to review applications and consider through the categories that they come in, and then consider whether one program may be able to fund it or another. If one can another program support the project to ensure that the maximum opportunities are provided for the project. And then finally, this all kind of ends with once we complete our collaborative review process, is putting forth the recommendations to the most impactful projects across the state. This is I wanted to give you an overview of kind of what's happened. As I mentioned, this is our fifth round. FY26 is our fifth round. This is what happened in the initial in the last 4 rounds. So essentially, it has resulted in over 1,200 grant awards, totaling, or almost 1,200 grant awards, totaling $564 million worth of funding that has been distributed. We've been able to make grants to over 500 different organizations across 284 of our cities and towns. Funding continues to be, and as you can see from the graphic, continues to be extremely competitive. We had, in both the last 2 rounds, we received over 750 applications for all categories. And in FY25, the amount of total funding was over 300% greater than the amount we had available. Here, we just kind of graphically want to show you kind of again, the last 4 years, 80% of all municipalities or communities across the Commonwealth have been represented by at least one award from the One Stop. This includes all 26 gateway cities and 139 of the state's 181 rural towns have received. There's still some spaces here where folks either have not participated or have not been successful in the past. And as we look at the various regions and in the Southeast in particular, look to you all to help us fill in some of these gaps. And just in terms of OCPC communities in particular, in that time frame, we've been able to make funded 63 projects, distributed about $22.5 million in grant awards, and been able to make awards in 13 of the communities, 13 of the 17 in OCP's coverage area. And let's see, next up.
Oh, and I just died on us 1 second here.
Yeah, we'll be right back with the and have some difficulty sometimes.
Yes.
With these decks, it shuts us off. I mean, essentially, right, we love to have these invitations from the regional groups in particular to help kind of understand what their needs are in the region, but also to provide you all with information on how to maximize the opportunities provided by the Community One Stop.
This is great. Thank you, Juan. We all want to go skiing wherever
Yeah.
But again, this is really helpful, again, our communities, and, you know, our goal really is to work with each of our 17 communities. We've grown our staff in terms of our capacity, whether it's a housing production plan or an open space plan, but also, the team of economic development and certainly our transportation team. So our goal really is to serve as technical assistance to work with the state on this. But we are also one that we have, again, we have a very various array of capacities that we are able to then utilize our services to work with you on these once you get the applications. But I'll leave that there for others to, I know, Juan, your time is a little bit short, right? You're gonna need to leave a little bit soon.
Yeah. So we'll move through a few more slides. This slide represents just a reiteration of the 12 grant programs that are represented in the FY26 round. I would highlight many of them have been in the One Stop since the beginning. We did want to note that Massachusetts Vacant Storefront Program is new in the One Stop this year, as well as a TDI Equity Investment Program that's run through Mass Development. But otherwise, these are the 12 programs that are distributing grants through the One Stop this year. And then here we wanted to get into a little bit, highlight the new programs. The Vacant Storefront is a tool to help communities revitalize their downtowns. The program's been around for a while. It's been mainly run through the Mass Office of Business Development and through the EACC process. The EACC involvement and process remains the same. We're just hoping that by including it in the One Stop, it gets to a much wider audience. Given that about 80% of the municipalities have participated in the One Stop. And we've also made a few tweaks or changes to the program. The municipality can now request up to $50,000 worth of the dedicated refundable tax credits, up from a max of $10,000. And the storefronts are eligible for the tax credits if they've been vacant for at least 6 months at the time of application. Grantee can choose to focus all tax credits on a single storefront, if that's what it's going to take, or spread them out in multiple. We look to the municipality to kind of make the call on how to most strategically utilize the tax credit incentive. And then approval, obviously, to the One Stop allows them. So the way this will work is the approval from the One Stop will essentially provide the municipality with access to the tax credits. But then when they're ready to actually submit a tax credit application, the business will be the one that submits to the EACC to get the actual tax credits designated to them. But the municipality now has a more active role in being able to facilitate a lot of this connecting the businesses with the EACC, which we had heard over the years that was always difficult, particularly for smaller businesses, to understand how these processes work. So we're hoping the municipality will be kind of our broker, if you will, to help really get these businesses access to this really great benefit. And then the other new program is the TDI Equity Investment Program. This is run through Mass Development. Again, the program existed for a while. We're hoping that bringing into the One Stop again will open it up to more use. It provides capital. It provides funds for capital improvements that activate ground floor and commercial spaces that are critical and to the economic and social vitality in TDI districts. So that is the limitation, that you have to be the project needs to be within a TDI district, but it is open to all organization types. And then in the continuum or in the application, it lives within the building development continuum category, and under the revitalized commercial space of the TDI district. In many cases, TDI Equity Investment may be eligible for funding by the UPP program as well. And then other changes in FY26 that we wanted to highlight. The Collaborative Workspace Program, which some folks have been maybe familiar, it has been paused for the FY26 cycle. We do encourage anybody that has a need for fit out and stuff like that to look at the underutilized properties program guidelines to see if they might be able to fit there. In all cases, we do encourage, if you have a question, to submit an expression of interest to see if perhaps your project might fit in the UPP guidelines. The Urban Agenda Grant Program also has provided a lot of support in the Southeast and other parts of the state. It no longer will be administered through the One Stop in this cycle. We will be issuing a separate RFP to come out in the spring to try to get that on a better timeline so that we're able to make awards, full year awards, outside of the One Stop timeline provided some limitations there. So we want to, that'll be announced, in the next few months. On the technical side, the One Stop team has worked and gotten a lot of feedback from all of you that have used the system about slowness. And this year we've really focused on making some improvements to significantly reduce the time that it takes to both save and load the application. If any of you worked on the application last year, especially if you were doing so in the last few days before the deadline, you may have experienced a little bit of frustration there. So we're hoping that a lot of improvement has been made there. And then finally, the EOI feedback report now includes direct links for you to register for one of the virtual office hours that aligns with your proposed project. We also, from the feedback we got from the public, from all of you, we've moved the office hour sessions to happen after the EOI process ends, so that you all get your feedback, and then you may have additional questions and you can attend an office hour to pose something more specific that you may want answered. So we're hoping that restructuring there is going to provide more opportunity to get good feedback. Again, before you start putting in the time to do a full app. You want to go in to do a full app when you fully, understanding how to put forth the most competitive application that you can. And then my final slide here, I just want to highlight the development continuum. Really is the basis for a lot of this. So it's important for you to read through the guidelines of the NOFA for the One Stop, which really gets into details on this, but it's important to understand how we view this and how we think of all the projects fitting within this continuum. It helps guide applicants by describing or helping to describe how a typical economic development project moves from the concept and the planning to the reality for different types of communities. All the projects submitted through the One Stop we believe will fit within one of the development continuum categories. And then the continuum kind of separates projects or activities in two broad categories. On the left side, you see what we call preparing for growth. So you should think of this as the grants that are going to support activities that are part of the initial steps by community-based actors to attract and guide private investment. This is where the planning and zoning category is, and preparing a site before you actually can market it out to a developer, or even just starting to bring together community stakeholders to start thinking about what a development could look like, and placemaking as well. And then on the right side, we consider these funding in these categories, which tend to be larger grants. This is where you're going to be catalyzing a specific project. This is, you have a private development on the hook that's going to bring some commercial, industrial, or residential investment to the community. And these are the grants or the investments that you would like to make to further that community vision by actually implementing, making the improvements, improving the infrastructure that's going to actually leverage the private development. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Pat to be able to continue with the presentation. And I may need to step out kind of in the middle of this. So I thank you if I don't get a chance, to Mary and Nick and to the whole team at OCPC. Thank you so much for the invitation. I very much appreciate it. We love to be able to talk about this community one-stop process because we think it's a game changer. We think it's a giveaway for all types of community organizations, not just the municipality, but the nonprofits and even for-profit developers that own buildings, all have a place in the one-stop. We feel that these are all the ingredients that are necessary to bring the kind of economic growth that you all are seeking. And so it's a pleasure for us, and we really look forward to hearing about all your projects and reading about what you're trying to accomplish.
Thank you.
So with that, I'll let Pat's gonna put the slide deck back on. Thank you so much. I appreciate
All
it.
right,
Thanks,
Juan.
Juan.
And
Thank you very much. And I'm just going to encourage just a couple things in between while we're transitioning over. Don't forget to put your questions in the chat and or there's in the Q&A, as well as just this is being recorded and the slide decks will be shared with everyone.
all right. Awesome. Well, apologies for a few technical glitches there, but so I'm going to start by digging into the applicant eligibility as it relates to the development continuum, which Juan just described. So starting at the top here, for-profit organizations are eligible to apply to the one-stop. However, they can only submit projects within the building category, specifically those that will be funded or could be funded by the Underutilized Properties Program or TDI Equity Investment Program. Nonprofits are also eligible to apply to both of those programs, as well as our site readiness program within the site preparation development continuum category. And then public organizations are eligible across the continuum. Every program in the One Stop will provide funding to public organizations, and that can include, obviously municipalities, but we see many redevelopment authorities, we see housing authorities, all kind of different types of public entities come through. So as Juan mentioned, we're currently in our guidance phase of the one-stop process. Guidance and applicant education is extremely important to us. We want to have our applicants go into submitting their applications, fully understanding our programs and kind of everything that's available to them. So we have three main tools in our guidance phase. First, the expression of interest. This is probably our most important tool. Basically, prospective applicants can go to the One Stop website and fill out a very simple web form. It takes about 5 minutes to complete, just providing, basic, what type of organization are you? And kind of high-level project information. Provide us with a short project abstract, answer a couple of multiple choice questions, letting us know kind of where your project falls within that development continuum. And basically what we'll do, we'll take a look at that and we'll provide a feedback report. So we'll basically let you know, is your project a fit for the One Stop, for any of our funding sources? And if so, which program is it a fit for? And then we'll provide you information about, some instructions on what to click once you're in the application to make sure you end up kind of in with the right program. We'll provide you some tips on what that program looks for in a competitive application. And then we'll provide links, like Juan mentioned, we'll be providing links to register for the office hours for that program. We'll provide links to access the webinars related to the program. So we just, again, want everybody to have as much information as possible. So the office hours, we have two different kind of types of office hours. First, we have our general one-stop guidance office hours. So this is basically where you'll come and ask questions about, the development continuum, any technical issues, just the one-stop process in general. We're actually starting those next week. So I believe our first one's next Tuesday. Then we'll have another general office hour in March, and then we'll actually have two in April. So we'll have I believe it's the third week in April, and then the week just before our full application submission period starts. We also have our program office hours. So this is where these are office hours run by program staff from each of the 12 programs. This year we're kind of lumping programs together into single office hour sessions. So basically, any program that's affiliated with a particular development continuum category will hold joint office hour sessions. And the reason for this is, number one, reduce the number of meetings our applicants need to attend. And number two, really just, we think it's an opportunity for folks to, hear a wider range of questions and just learn more within the hour. And then finally, our webinars. So we're actually kind of in the middle of our webinar period right now. So last week we held our 2 live webinars. So an overview of the One Stop, which is essentially a kind of more robust version of this presentation we're giving today. And then we had our application guidance webinar. So kind of walking through different project scenarios and helping applicants understand where their project falls within the one-stop development continuum and kind of how you'd proceed within the application. At the end of last week, we also uploaded a series of technology webinars to our website. So, you know, check those out if you're in our IGX system and need some help. And then this week, we're going to be uploading 12 webinars, one for each of our programs. So those are, you know, 5 to 10 minute quick pre-recorded videos, just highlighting, again, what kind of the background of our programs and kind of what they look for in successful applications. And those will be uploaded to our website on Thursday. So full application, as Juan noted, this is the vehicle for applying through the One Stop. Over the years, we've worked hard to really streamline this thing. I think at one point we had, you know, 15 different potential forms and within the application. We've got that down to 3 main forms. So first, applicants will just provide, you know, basic organization information, essentially your organization's contact info. And this form will actually transfer from application to application, so you only have to fill it out once per year. Form 2 is the project information. So this is kind of the meat of the application. This is where you're telling us all about the project that you're requesting funding for. You give us a narrative, you know, why your community needs this project. What are the anticipated outcomes of the project? How much are you requesting from us? So this is the majority of the information that our programs need to evaluate an application and determine, you know, which applications will be funded. And then the application ends with a certification, just letting us know that the person clicking submit has authority to do so. We also do have kind of an optional form for housing choice communities. So if you're a housing choice community and you'd like your application reviewed by the Housing Choice Grant Program, you do need to fill out an additional form with some questions about your community's housing choice best practices. This is another form that will copy from application to application. So if you do want the Housing Choice Grant Program to look at multiple applications, the answers to these questions shouldn't change. So you'll see this populate in subsequent applications. Just a couple additional notes. There's no limit to the number of applications that any one community or organization can submit. However, you do need to submit a separate application for each project. Again, you know, that Form 2 will need different kind of information specific to the project that you want funded. And then we also caution that similar applications may compete against each other just naturally. If you have, you know, a master plan, let's say, and that you'd like funded, and a housing production plan, those are likely both going to be considered for funding by the community grants, the community planning grant program. So, you know, just naturally they'll compete against each other. So we do recommend, you know, prioritizing your projects and just being cognizant of that. So now I just wanted to walk through a few examples of past successful applications. So we're going to start with a project in the town of Clinton. This project was funded by MassWorks in the last round. So here, the town of Clinton requested support with making some stormwater system improvements. Basically, the town had several major stormwater system failures over the course of the last 15 years that caused significant flooding. I believe, you know, they were seeing up to 3 feet of flooding in some subgrade in basements and in some of their old mill buildings. You know, beyond just needing to make these improvements to support the existing residents and businesses in the town, these improvements were also required in order to allow for the redevelopment of one of the town's historic mills. This is a pretty major redevelopment for the community. The developer was proposing over 200 apartments and 37,000 square feet of commercial. And this this project would not be able to move forward with the current kind of state of the stormwater system. So the reason that this project was a great fit for MassWorks, number one, the public infrastructure improvements were directly tied to a private development. So as I noted, it's a major redevelopment, bringing housing and commercial. That's really important if you're submitting a MassWorks or an infrastructure application. You know, application projects that are just for general, you know, infrastructure improvements that don't support new development are generally not going to be very competitive. So you do want to tie those improvements to new development. In addition, the project was shovel ready. The town had already had the project 90% designed when they submitted their application. So we knew that, you know, when they get the funding, they're going to be pretty much ready to hit the ground running and get working on these improvements. There was also a strong match included. So I believe the town and the developer combined to provide about a 25-26% match on top of what they were requesting from the state. So we'd love to see that. We like to see that the, you know, the community has some skin in the game in the project. A match isn't a requirement, but it certainly makes the application more competitive. And then finally, this project had a strong climate resilience component. So, you know, obviously in this case, they were designing the project, you know, to basically mitigate effects of climate change and flooding. But they did design the project to withstand a 100-year storm, which is what was recommended from the climate resilience kind of tool report that they included in the application. Next up, we have an example of a project that was funded by the Community Planning Grants Program. So this one came from the town of Franklin. In this case, they were looking for support to conduct an audit and amendment to their zoning bylaw to update it with kind of modern best zoning practices. The ultimate goal of the project was to implement new zoning that would increase both the economic activity in the town as well as bring more affordable housing to the community. So in this case, the application was successful because, you know, they basically just made a strong argument for, number one, why the project was needed, why it was so important for the community, and number two, that they were going to be successful in implementing the project. They provided, you know, they showed that they had already made progress on the project before requesting the funding. They provided a great scope of work. They had a team that was ready to implement the project. They provided the scope was also kind of within the timeline of what the Community Planning Grants program likes to see in terms of like implementing the project. And then they had an appropriate grant request that they were able to justify. Moving on, we have a project submitted by the West Mass Area Development Corporation in Ludlow, which was funded by the Site Readiness Program. So this was a project to conduct a market analysis, marketing plan, and concept design for a 40-acre business park within the historic Ludlow Mills complex. So this project was successful. Just basically, they checked a lot of the boxes that the Site Readiness Program lays out in their guidelines. I'll just note that, you know, we always direct applicants to check out the program guidelines that for whatever program that their project is most closely aligned with. When you complete the application, we'll actually we'll let you know which program is most likely to review the project with a link to their website so that you can quickly access their guidelines. But in this case, the project aligned with what Site Readiness likes to see for, you know, kind of a end use. So Site Readiness will only fund projects that result in commercial, industrial, or housing end use. So here we had a business park, so obviously that aligns. Site Readiness also likes to see that the project is going to result in at least 50,000 square feet of development A 40-acre business park is obviously gonna far exceed that. So they did a great job just kind of going through the guidelines and highlighting why their project aligned with the program. They also showed that the project was in line with kind of the town's planning and strategic goals. So it built off what the town had kind of already outlined in their comprehensive plan. And the district is already an approved 40R smart growth district. So this is a nonprofit that submitted this application, but clearly they were aligned with the town. And then finally, we have an example of an underutilized properties program award in Brockton. So right in Old Colony. So underutilized properties program is probably our most competitive program in the One Stop. It's super popular. Again, this is a program that all organization types can apply to. So in this case, we had a vacant building in downtown Brockton that developer was turning into a collaborative workspace and cafe. The grant actually funded code compliance, accessibility, and fire improvements within the building, within the envelope of the building. So the reason this was successful, they were transforming a property that's been vacant for 30 years. This is essentially why the underutilized property program was created. A perfect case for the program. They showed that, they had all the private kind of funding in place. They weren't, again, only relying on this grant for this project to be a success. They had their capital stack all set. And this was kind of, what additional funding that was needed to complete that stack. Like we noted in the MassWorks example, the project was shovel ready. So we knew that once we gave them the funding, they'd be able to get going and start the work. It was an experienced developer, so there's confidence in the success of the project. It was bringing new growth to the town that would improve the city, that would be added to the tax rolls. And there's belief that, by funding this project and seeing this building transform, it would generate more interest in the surrounding area, and just bring more private investment. So we are going to just end this presentation with a look at the timeline. So we launched this round a couple of weeks ago on January 24th. So with that, we launched the expression of interest, and as well as a full application. So right now you can go into our IGX system and start working on your applications. You're not actually going to be able to submit until we get to our submission period, which is in May. But I'm kind of jumping ahead. So before that, from January to April, we're in that guidance phase that we discussed. And then we'll wrap up the guidance phase as the full application submission period begins. So starting May 5th, you'll be able to start submitting your applications. And we have a final deadline of Wednesday, June 4th, to get your applications in. We'll then take the summer to review all these projects, and then we will be providing notification of our decisions in the fall. So with that, yeah, that's our presentation for today. Any questions you have? Well, we're happy to take some questions now, but then any questions you have after this meeting, feel free to send over to onestop@mass.gov, and would be happy to get back to you.
Thanks, Pat. I saw a couple questions pop up in the chat, so I'll just relay them to you here. Pamela McCarthy from Stoughton had asked whether the climate tool is still a part of the application.
Yep, it is. So the climate tool is required if you're submitting an infrastructure or building project. So basically, this is a tool that's created by our friends over at EEA. That essentially, you enter some information about the site that your project's taking place on, and the tool lets you know kind of how susceptible it is to kind of climate impacts like flooding, heat, and intense rain. I guess that's flooding, but but, and then it gives you a recommendation for kind of the level to which you should be designing the project to make it resilient to any negative climate.
Great. And I think Pam had also asked a question about whether if you received one-stop grant award from FY25, would applications be less competitive during the FY26 round?
Not necessarily. Each application is really, I mean, we look at, through this process, we're able to take a holistic look at a community's, needs and priorities, but we really try to look at each application kind of on its own merits. So no, that wouldn't make it any less competitive. We see communities and organizations receive multiple awards within a same round. So if you have a high impact project, it's, going to be competitive.
One last question from the chat. Rick Jordan from the town of Avon has asked, I submitted an expression of interest on January 31st at 10:13 a.m. and then got my one-stop feedback 3 hours later at 1:35 the same day. It looks like you might be using AI to respond so quickly. That was the question.
Okay. So that's we don't actually use AI. We do use
It's just an efficient staff, right?
yeah. No, so when we kind of rebuilt our expression of interest process, the way that we set up the form, it's kind of it has kind of like a logic that funnels down that makes it really easy for us to tell if a project's a fit or not. But so we definitely have a little head start there, but then we go through each and see kind of what you put in your project abstract, make sure it aligns with the recommendation from the tool. And then we provide your feedback. But yeah, right now the volume's not as high, so we're able to kind of to get through them as pretty quickly. So that's a benefit of submitting early. Once we get to the deadline, that's when we get about probably 80 to 90% of all EOIs. So you might have to wait a couple days at that point. But
I was going to say that's a good cue for everybody on this to
yeah,
don't wait on getting them in.
submit early and often.
Mhm.
Pat, I have a quick question that might be useful for some of our communities. I know, so as a response to the expression of interest, so communities are receiving a letter, tells them which programs they might be eligible for. If a community wants to get more feedback from a department or from a program manager, are they able to do that with most programs, or to be able to get on the phone to maybe ask some other questions about their EOI?
So that's kind of program by program. I'd say the best thing you can do is to attend the office hour. That'll be a great opportunity to both ask your questions and learn from other people's questions. Some programs are a little more, open to having, those phone discussions, but as a general practice, I'd just say, attend the office hours and that's your best kind of route.
Nick, you're going to ask the next question that Richard had asked as well in terms of the submission. You answered it in the chat, but just for recording.
Rick Jordan from Avon had also asked, so the one-stop website says on the one hand that full application period is now open, but later it focuses full app submittal in the month of May through June 3rd or 4th. Are you accepting full applications now?
So yeah, no, you can work on your applications right now, but you can't submit until we get to that submission period in May. And the reason for that, a big reason for that is, we want everybody to get all their feedback and guidance before clicking that submit button.
I don't think that there's any other questions in the chat, but I want to reiterate again, this is being recorded. The deck, the slides will be shared with everyone. But most importantly, I mean, there are other staff. You can see everybody has from Old Colony Planning Council, from Rhiannon to Don Sullivan to Paul Omano, our grants person. I mean, there's a number of OCPC staff on this meeting today. Nick is a great point of contact because he served on both sides, working for the state as well as now working for us. Great resources here for our communities. And if there are, I think there's a couple folks from outside of our region, go to your regional planning agencies as a great resource to connect, not just only technical assistance, but also to, at the end, when you do get that successful grant, we're also here to help you with that. Nick, do you want to close this up?
Yeah, if there are no other questions, I'll just say, thank you for all for joining us today. We hope you found the webinar informative and valuable. Special thanks to Pat and Juan for their leadership on this program and in communicating all this important information to us. Like Mary said, I've been on the other side of the one stop with those guys, so I know firsthand there's a lot of work that goes into coordinating the program, and it really has come a very long way. But we want to encourage everyone to apply and chase down projects. So as we conclude, I do just want to emphasize that, OCPC is eager to partner with all of you. We've always believed that by collaborating, we can drive meaningful growth and development in our region. And, that starts with us working together on projects in our communities. So
Nick,
all that said, yes.
Before you close out there, again, I just want to reiterate appreciation to Al from Senator Brady's office, but also Representative Michelle Dubois had joined us, and our legislative delegation. There are two of many that are on, but we just want to also just say thank you to them to supporting this program on the statewide level.
Thanks, Mary. And I was just going to conclude by saying, we wish all of our partners in all of our towns the best as they pursue projects and develop their applications. So whether you have questions, need assistance, or are looking for collaboration opportunities, OCPC is definitely here to support you. So, and as Mary said, today's session was recorded, so you will be able to access that and use it as a reference. You can find it on our website and on YouTube. And as you know, we have a great relationship with Pat and Juan and our partners over at the state. So please don't hesitate to reach out should you have any questions. And thanks again for your participation. And we look forward to seeing the positive impact many of your projects can have in the region. So thank you everyone for joining us.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Pat. Thank you, everyone.